Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Cup of Joy. I'm your host, Ariana Joy Christie, and I am so glad that you are here. This is a space to inspire, to learn, to grow, and to challenge. Get ready to fill your cup and spread a little joy along the way. Okay, Fallon Farinacci, River Métis, mama of three, wife, creator, advocate, and survivor. Welcome to Your Cup of Joy.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here and see your face.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're here too. I've been a fan and a follower of yours for a very long time, years now, in fact. And I just love how you share so openly, both the good and the bad. And more importantly, you advocate so much and you really do create change. And I just think it's incredible. And I've had such an amazing time following along and just hearing and learning from you.
My goodness, thank you very much for that.
Of course, it's the truth. Can you maybe share with us a little bit about why advocacy is important to you and why you've really taken that role on?
Yeah, absolutely. So going back, I was born and raised in a predominantly Indigenous community in Manitoba. It's the name is Saint Eustache. My father was Indigenous. I'm Red River Métis. My mother is non-Indigenous, and so at the age of 9 years old, I lost both of my parents. I will preface here trigger warning. I do speak about murder and suicide. And so both of my parents were killed in front of myself and my three brothers. Well, technically not my older brother because he was fortunate enough to escape. The man who killed my parents was a family friend, loosely say that. He was a community member, someone that we knew. He grew increasingly obsessed with my mother. So my parents did seek the help of the RCMP, and unfortunately, we were failed many of times. My parents had called the RCMP. My mother gave a statement when he initially threatened death. He went from an understanding of what their relationship was, being, just friends, community members, to it escalating. And that just speaks to his own mental health journey. He himself was also Indigenous, he was Métis, and he dealt with alcohol problems himself. And so, yeah, he grew increasingly obsessed with my mother. And this was back in 1992. And so my parents made the RCMP aware, and it kind of fell on deaf ears. Nothing was really done. It was brought before a judge. There was a restraining order put in place. However, at that time, there were laws in Manitoba, but they weren't being enacted at that time.
Mm,
And like my grandmother says, my mom's mom, a restraining order is as good as a piece of paper that it's written on. And
yeah.
so there was nothing being done to support. So I lost my parents, and there were many other failures within the justice system, as there still is for Indigenous folks. And that trickled through our family and left severe mental health problems for all of us.
Mm,
I'm not going to just say my brothers, myself as well, struggling with all of it. We all lived through the same thing, yet something different. Just like all of our perspective on things are different. And so it was really hard to deal with. And unfortunately, we didn't receive mental health support. I'm always generous, and I say that we received two play based therapies, myself and my younger brother. However, I knew I was right that we had only received one, and I had only actually found out this year that I was, in fact, correct. My memory was correct about only receiving one. And my older brother had aged out of the system at 18, so he didn't receive mental health support. And honestly, I don't know if we would have, like, our family would have necessarily gone that route because, there's always been a stigma around mental health, and we're still
right.
not where we need to be, right? So that's
Yeah.
kind of where um, my to answer your question very long, is that's where my journey began with advocacy. And then the realization that I wasn't alone came in 2017 when I testified for the National Inquiry for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, Two Spirited Folks. I joined the National Family Advisory Circle a couple of years later, but when I testified, it was like, oh, so this isn't just, obviously I knew what has been going on in our country, but I think with trauma and with colonization, you're just led to believe like this is your story, this is what you've been served, this is your life, so deal with it. And
Mhm.
so when you start to really hear that people have almost identical stories to you, like there's two families that I met on this journey that have nearly identical stories. So that's what I mean, where I felt like less alone. Not to say that I didn't wasn't aware of the genocide that was going on. It wasn't. I wasn't able to really connect it to being like my story, right?
Totally.
And then I think too, we have with trauma and life and adulthood, we have imposter syndrome. So we think,
Always.
right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, who am I? Is this my story? And I start to like question my place
Mhm.
as well. So, yeah.
Or I had a really good conversation with someone not too long ago about like a terrible thing that happened to me when I was a kid, and I'm like, "Well, it's not that bad." Like, "Oh, well, it didn't," even though other people had experienced it and it had impacted them in certain ways, and I think that imposter syndrome comes with, like, not wanting to victimize yourself even though something is so tragic, and in fact, you are a victim, and it's okay to feel those feelings, and it's so difficult when we're so often told, like, "Oh, stop crying.
Yeah.
Oh, smarten up. Oh, be tough." Like, we have to also hold space for the impact that it has years and years and years later,
Yeah.
and something that you mentioned too is that it impacted you and others differently, like, in different ways, even though you all had the same lived experience, it impacted you in different ways, and that's something that a girlfriend told me a few weeks ago, was that you can, because I was having a really hard time just figuring that out, that what had happened to me was not actually okay,
Right.
and she said to me, "Ariana, 3 people can be in the exact same car crash, and they can all think of it in a different way, or they can all be impacted in a different way. One person can walk away from it and say, 'I had a car crash,' and live their life the same way the next day. Another person cannot be able to get into a car for 10 years, 15
Yeah,
years." Like,
absolutely.
it's not about always the actual act or the actual thing that happened. It's focusing on how it's impacted you and how to support that. And I think you're doing such an incredible job of advocating and supporting people not only through the incident, but in the aftermath of that incident and how it affects them later.
Thank you. Yeah, I always say when I'm speaking with folks is, I used to feel really bad because I would leave with a sense of healing. And an elder had said to me not to feel bad because I'm leaving something behind. And I'm taking something with me every time. There's
Mhm.
always something new that comes up for me. Every single time. I can literally I sometimes give a warning before I speak for myself, for
Yeah,
others to understand that there may be something that comes up when I'm speaking. I might pause, I might have a moment because it's always different for me, right? Like I've had in the middle of a talk the realization that, oh my gosh, what if I had just went up the stairs and walked out the door that day instead? And I had never thought of that my whole life. My whole life up until like I think it was like a year ago when I realized that.
wow.
That's a long time. Like
Mhm.
I thought, "Oh my gosh," and I'm processing this in front of people, right? So
Totally.
so there's always going to be something that's going to come up different, and it's going to be different for everyone, right? And we're going to be at different paths along our life because healing isn't linear.
Totally, it's not at all, and I think that's also an important thing to note, and something that, um, can be hard to conceptualize also because sometimes you have the perceptions of people around you like, "Oh, at this stage, I should be feeling this way," and that's not, in
Absolutely.
fact, the truth at all in any regard for anybody.
Yeah.
So, I think that's definitely an important thing to know, and thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for sharing that, publicly and just for advocating because I can't even imagine, obviously, what you've been through, and I just think it's so incredible for you to take that and turn it into advocacy and making change, and it's just so incredible that you are continuing to pursue that despite how difficult and tragic it really is.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, of course. So, as a change maker, because you are, what is one example that you can give us of change that you are maybe the most proud of to stand behind or to be a part of?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
Uh, well, for me, oh my gosh. I think to stand and to be a part of and the change would be um, the change that community members are constantly bringing forward and those community organizations and just to be a part of it. So not necessarily my own thing, but more to just be a part and witness the change that other folks within the Indigenous community are doing and gathering together, breaking those barriers, having the conversations. There is so much that's always going on. Like, yes, I share on social media, and some of those from the community do too, but that's not all that's happening, otherwise I don't think we'd have a whole lot of change. We'd have some, but maybe not as much. But I would say, yeah, that. And then I started a GoFundMe fundraiser in 2021 because it was a significant year for me. I was officially the first person in my immediate family to turn the age of 38.
Wow.
And while I started the GoFundMe, I pressed enter, I set it up. It wasn't my fundraiser. This was community. And probably the most proud of this because it's an act of Indigenous community coming together and allies coming together, of bringing awareness and fundraising for two incredible Indigenous organizations. One was specifically to support youth from my community back home in
Mm,
Manitoba. And then
amazing.
the other one is Abbey House. And Abbey House is a transitional home for Indigenous women with or without children here in the Niagara region. And the fundraiser would not have been the success that it was, or this GoFundMe, if it wasn't for people coming together. And so I say it's probably something I'm most proud of because it's it proves what I say, that numbers count. When we come together, we can make change. And that's what happened with this fundraiser. So I always say, imagine if more people came together, the
Mhm.
ripple effect that we could have, right? So
Totally. I love that so much, and I just love that you're right, it is community based and community focused, and what there's so much more impact when we come together to do something than just trying to go it on our own. I have another girlfriend who always says to me, "There's no reward for doing it by yourself."
absolutely not.
You
No.
know?
Yeah.
So, if we can really just embrace bringing things up together, doing things together, and supporting each other, we can just have so much more impact.
I 100% agree.
I love that. I think it's incredible. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
You also speak about the ongoing genocide. We touched on it here of Indigenous women, girls, and 2S plus. For listeners who might not fully be able to grasp that or understand that, or maybe don't even know about this, can you share what that looks like today and why raising awareness is so very crucial?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, more and more, we don't even really know that. I mean, I don't. I should say, I don't know the statistics of Indigenous men also being murdered and going missing. What I do know that is the rate is actually higher than Indigenous women.
Wow.
Yeah, and so but it's not being talked about. So I think this ongoing genocide is, I heard someone, actually, I heard a youth say at a gathering that we hold here in May for Red Dress Day in the Niagara region. There was a youth that spoke, and she said that she wasn't going to use the term MMIW G2S plus, that she was going to use missing and murdered warriors from now on. And so I really respect that she had shared that. That's not me. That's her words. And it's just one of those things, because for those that are listening, like this, in the last 7 days, I think it's a little more now just because that was a couple days ago. So let's say the last 10 days or so. And obviously, it might be a little longer for when listeners hear this, but there has been countless Indigenous people who have been murdered by police across the country. One was a youth who had called for help himself. And so it's really unfortunate just the way things have gone, to have seven Indigenous people pass away in the span of such a short period of time at the hands of the police. And it's not just the police and the justice system that's failing Indigenous folks. It is other people across Turtle Island, and so it is a very scary statistics to be living with as Indigenous people, knowing that you would be more likely to be murdered or go missing than non-Indigenous folks as well. So it's an ongoing genocide because the numbers aren't even, they're not even accurate. The numbers that were shared, those are just because those are reported incidences with the RCMP or police services across the country. And so there's not even an accurate number of how many women have gone missing or have been murdered, unfortunately. And there was a national call, grassroots. It started from grassroots organizations, from community, calling on the government for a national inquiry into why there are so many Indigenous women and girls, and two-spirited folks who are going missing and are murdered. And so that's where the national inquiry came about, and I testified for the national inquiry, and then I was a part of the National Family Advisory Circle. And so just sitting along, like I said, and hearing people's stories that are just eerily so similar, and you're wondering, like, why is this to go on?
Yeah,
And we talk about a ripple effect in a positive way, and then you have to also think about a ripple effect from residential schools, and the 60 scoop, and from children, Indigenous children, being ripped from their homes and then being forced into these institutions and separated from their communities. This has an impact. It would
huge.
impact impact any human being. And
Yeah,
I think that's like where we need to get to now, is like the understanding of us as humans, right? And the impact that that would have. And if you're taken from your mother, and then down the road you become a mother, and you didn't have an upbringing with a mother in a positive way, then how is that necessarily, not for all, but how will that impact your parenting? And then
totally.
that continues the cycle of intergenerational trauma. And so that's where people really need to understand, is that these are stories, and put themselves in their shoes, and just try to think for a moment, like, how would you ultimately survive? How would you grow up to be, if you had that privilege also? So when we're talking about MMIWG2S plus, we're talking about so much more than those statistics, right? So
Yeah, totally. And I think that's just so important to note because it already seems so the numbers already seem large without having every single incident included. So now thinking about that even more is just it's so impactful, and it's like, how is something not being done? Why is this happening? What can we do to create change? So, um, I think it's important to share and to continue sharing because for people who aren't connected or maybe just don't hear about it, it's hard to understand and it's hard to be supportive to or to find a place to be supportive to. And so I just think that's why your advocacy work is so important because you can share with people this is where to support, this is where to find support. These are things that are happening and the empathy piece is so important. Like picture yourself in those shoes. You
Yeah.
know, like thank God that you have not experienced this, but if you did, how would it feel? And so I think it's just so important the work that you are doing and the work that others are doing, and that you are continuing to raise awareness. You touched briefly a little bit on your role with the National Family Advisory Circle. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how the experience with that circle and the advisory has really shaped your advocacy work?
Yeah. So when I got the call initially from one of the commissioners, Commissioner Michelle Odette, she had called me back in, my gosh, I think it was 2019, the beginning of 2019. And I had that imposter syndrome. Like, what? Why me? I don't understand. I didn't understand at all. And I was really having trouble wrapping my head around it because I was like, but my mom's non-Indigenous. Like my mom isn't a case of MMIW. My father was killed. And I took myself out of it completely because it happened to them, right? And yes, it
Mhm.
impacted my life and my brother's lives, but I couldn't really understand that at the time, that ripple effect part of it. And so I had flown out to BC and we had a meeting out there, and it was really there that I started to um, kind of come to the realization my role that I could play, just sharing my story and then advocating and hoping and mentioning change, that had it happened maybe we wouldn't be here in this situation,
Mhm.
like my family specifically.
Yeah.
And then we carried on and we continued to work together, and I met so many amazing people that I'm still connected with,
Mhm.
and I think are just some of the kindest people. My husband was with me, and I remember him and just like tearing up talking to me about it. Like, if people could just know, like, what so many folks have gone through, and listen, because you can know, but that doesn't mean that you're listening to it,
Mhm.
right? And listen to their stories and then to meet them. And he says it all the time. He's like, honestly, he's like, these survivors and family members are some of the kindest people that I've ever met in my whole life. And he's like, and he just has a hard time grasping like what you've gone through to then to still have that light in you, right?
Mhm.
And just hearing it from him, I'm always like, oh, you're right. If people could only just get it, like we wouldn't be where we are right now, right?
Totally.
And so it
Totally.
had a huge impact, and it wasn't just on me, it was on my family as well, and my husband, because he was there with me. And then it was the closing ceremonies, um, that I was sitting there, and I had this huge realization, like the room's quiet. I mean, it was a big room, right? We're at the I forget what museum it is, but in Gatineau, Quebec. And I grabbed my husband's leg and I whispered, and I said, I get it. And he said, you get what? And I said, I'm the girl. Ah, that realization. I'm the girl. I was this picture perfect, wrapped up in a bow for a simulation. I was removed from my community. My non-Indigenous family here in Ontario really struggled with like how to get me involved here. At the time, there's a lot of political things between Indigenous organizations. So I didn't have my Manitoba Métis Federation. My father was once the president for our local, like
Wow.
being in your community, being part of your culture. It's not like an add on, it's just a part of your life, sitting around
Mhm.
hearing stories from your family members. That's just like other conversations, but it's intertwined with culture and like
Yeah.
traditions and stuff, right? So I wasn't getting that being here in Ontario. And so, yeah, it was that realization like, oh my God, I could have like genuinely lost all of that. And that knowing, I mean, I don't think I'll ever have all of it again. But just the realization is something that you're like, okay, so, I want to hold on to this. And then I always follow it up with, though, except for they didn't know who my father was or who my ancestors were and what my dad had instilled in me in such a young age. So I'm happy I had that realization in that moment. It was a scary realization to be like, oh, okay, so like statistically, yeah, like you shouldn't be here, or
Mhm.
there's a much lower chance that you would continue to survive and be here. But it was there. And then I just remember saying to folks as we were closing off the ceremony and like talking with other parts of the National Family Advisory Circle, like, any way I can help. Just tell me any way I can help. I want to be involved. I want to do it.
Wow.
And I think it's true. If you want to be involved, if you want to do something, just say it and it will come back
Mhm.
to you. And so just from there, I've had this amazing. Do I want to change my story? Yes. My girlfriend, Dr. Robin Bourgeois, who's absolutely incredible and had a huge part in the inquiry as well. And she's a fierce community member. She and I always say, do we want this to be our story? No. Can we change it? We can't change the past, but the hope is that we can change the future, right?
Mhm.
So we're going to we have a privilege now of going on and hopefully sharing and maybe bringing some change.
For sure. I think that's incredible that you're, because it can go the opposite way, like you're taking this tragic, terrible thing and sharing with people and breaking that cycle. Like you said, like it can continue to impact and continue to impact. And I think by changing that and showing kindness and love, like the way that you're talking about that experience with your husband saying like, "Oh my gosh, look how kind and loving these people are." That is how you are, Fallon.
Thank you.
Like,
Oh my God.
seriously, the first time I met you, I was like, "Oh my," you just bring, like, joy to a room full of people, and you make, um, like, normal things exciting and fun, and it's just incredible to me that you can continue to shine your light. I just think it's amazing, and you're an inspiration to so many people.
Well, thank you. You brought tears to my eyes.
Thank you for sharing your kindness and light. Because the thing about that is that it's contagious. It makes other people want to be kind and loving too. So I just think that's amazing.
Well, thank you.
Of course. We're going to switch gears a little bit because the podcast, Your Cup of Joy, came to be because I was struggling so much with my own mental health, especially postpartum. And anytime I went to think even about practicing self care or doing something for myself, I just felt guilty. Like it's that wild feeling of like, nope, I shouldn't do that. I should do something else. And I don't think you have to be a mom to feel that. Like you can be at work if you're, oh, I should take a walk during my lunch break. Like, no, I should be doing this work. There's just this battle internally in your head. And it does become this cycle. And I think mental health is such a difficult topic because especially to talk about when
Yeah.
you're experiencing it. And I know there have been times that I'm even like embarrassed or shameful, like all these emotions come when talking about mental health. But then when you hear other people open up about it or talk about it, you feel this overwhelming sense of like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. Like those feelings of shame and guilt go away. And you realize like this does happen to people and it's okay. And there is a way out. um, so as a mental health advocate and survivor, how have you managed to navigate the healing process while carrying this weight of advocacy also and storytelling also and your own grief too?
Oh gosh, I don't know how I've done it. So that's a
I
big
don't know.
that's a big question.
Yeah, I watch you
Um,
and I'm like, wow, you do carry this kindness and you are so loving and you've been through so much and you are advocating now for people.
Oh, well, I mean, it's constant, right? Like it's ongoing. It's not like I'm over it. And I know that there could be something that could come up that can just send me spinning with my own thoughts. And I think honestly, what's gotten me through it has been sharing and hearing other people say, like, oh my gosh, I feel the same way.
Mhm.
Or that I'm not alone by them sharing with me. So ultimately, by me sharing and then them sharing back with me, it's like this reciprocal support, right? Like we're supporting one another just by letting each other know that we're not alone.
Mhm.
I'm simply out here sharing, hoping that other people don't feel alone. And then I'm like, if it's a post or something, and then hearing it back from them, I'm just like, wow, okay, there are so many other people that are feeling this way. There's been times like I go to write something and I'm like, oh, I don't know, I can't post this. People will think I'm whatever for posting it. And then it's like I posted, and then the outpour of love that comes back is just tenfold from what I could even have imagined it be. So
Totally.
I think just talking about it's and sharing where I'm at really helps. And then I think also sharing, like, the other parts of my life. Yes, I'm feeling this way today, and tomorrow it could be a great day. And the next day after that could be a great day. And then I could have some like horrible days after that.
Mhm.
But that's who we are as people. Like we have a lot going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
why I hate I mean, I shouldn't say hate, but I don't love in a bio putting like, titles first, like a wife or, because it's like one of those things, like we are all so much more just as individuals, and we go through so much. Yes, these are huge parts of our life. Just like sometimes our mental health is a part of that, but like I could go and pick up my little one from school later today, and that can just shift or not, and that's okay too. It's a journey. I'm not there. I don't have the answer as to how I'm doing it. I'm just doing it.
I love it. I think that's so important, like the greatness of reciprocity. Like when you give, you also receive, and that's such an important thing to remember. Like sometimes you think, "Oh, if I do that, it's going to take so much energy. If I volunteer this time or whatever, like I don't have the time to do that." But usually when you do, you gain so much more than you actually give.
So much.
It's quite
Absolutely.
incredible. And then the piece of sharing your story too, I just believe that there is so much healing and connection in storytelling. Like when you share parts of you and experiences of you, you do feel good knowing that other people are going through it, or maybe not good, but at least supported. And it's so
Mhm.
nice to know that you're not alone. And you feel connected. Like you just do when you and somebody else have had a similar experience, or when you have a at least a type of understanding, I think it does bring these really strong connections that are so important and create incredible relationships.
Yeah, especially if you can connect on like the healing aspect of it and
Yeah.
not the trauma bonding of it. If you can
Yes.
connect on that healing aspect, it's like it's really, really impactful. And then I think those are the people that you continue to walk the journey with. I think sometimes when it's like, okay, this is maybe you're not where you need to be, or maybe that person's not where they need to be for it to be that relationship where you can bond and heal and grow kind of together. A huge part of what's helped me with my mental health has been just getting involved and being with community.
Mhm.
After my younger brother passed away, so he lost his battle to mental health just under a year ago, and I was actually talking about this the other day with someone, because even my friend couldn't remember, because she too was, grieving my brother. And I mean, that's where all of our heads were. And so I was trying to think of, like, did I go out to drumming the day after he had passed? I genuinely couldn't remember. We think it was a week later. We still haven't come to the answer of it, but I was out drumming within, let's say, a week. Because I knew that in the past, if I was struggling with my mental health, I tell myself, what are the things you're not doing anymore? Like you were talking about the
Mm,
self care. What are the things? Because you'd be surprised. More often than not, you're not doing the things when your mental health is like, you're like, oh, I'm so good right now. Like, and you're unaware. You're unaware. Like sometimes we're like, oh, I don't even know why I'm like, this is great. I'm happy. And it's because you're probably doing things to help support your own mental health, help support
totally.
you as a person. You're nourishing, you're filling your cup, you're doing the things, and whatever it might be, because there's no recipe to what that is for each person. And so I learned, oh, this was probably it was the year of the fundraiser, because I remember thinking like getting the fundraiser was finishing up and I just, well, it still technically goes, but the fundraiser, the initial fundraiser
Yeah.
was ending. And I thought I was feeling like heaviness and I was like, what am I doing? And I was like, oh, I haven't been out drumming. I haven't been doing community things. I haven't really seen, you know, I've been with my family, but I haven't been with friends. And because the fundraiser things were like busy, right? It was that constant
Totally.
go.
Mhm.
And so things were dropping. And the things that were dropping were the things that I actually need in order to show up. And so I said, literally, I said on like day one, probably day two after my brother passed away, I need to go drumming. I need to go.
Wow.
And I went, I didn't drum like the whole time, but I was with community and a lot of people that were there actually weren't even like some of my close friends from community because I don't even think I told anyone. Well, Luke, obviously, but I went and came
Yeah.
home and yeah, so I think if you pay attention to what are the things, and if you're not there yet, if you can't pinpoint what are the things, that's okay. Took me, like I said, it was 2021 when I realized, oh, these are the things I need to do to feel my best.
And you might have an aha moment of
Yeah,
knowing. Like, I think it's so incredible that you knew then, like, "I need to do this for myself."
yeah,
Or even to just feel, like, a little bit of okay. Like, it's
yeah.
not gonna heal you immediately. You're not gonna feel amazing, but I think, yeah, if you can push yourself to do some things that feel good for you or that fill your cup, it can have great impact. But you might have that moment of like, "Okay," like, it's so interesting to me that you're saying this now because I've been not amazing by any means lately
Hmm.
and just having a rough go. And just yesterday, I looked at Mike and I was like, "I've had a really good week."
Right.
Like,
So
I
think,
feel really good, and then I
what were
started
the things?
reflecting, and I was like, "You
Yes.
know what? I saw my sister twice, I went to the gym 3 times, and I've been packing a healthy lunch to
See?
my day." Like,
Yeah.
simple, basic things that you don't think have that much impact, and then when you reflect, they really, really do.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you went a week without those things, is something you can think like, would it impact me? And you might tell yourself, no, that it wouldn't. I would be fine. Okay, well then do it and see how you are because you'll realize really quickly what are the things. Like it wasn't shortly after that I had posted that I just wasn't in a good place. And it wasn't in black and white posted like I'm not in a good place. I don't even know. I'd actually have to go back to read what it was I had posted. Whatever I had posted, it was enough for my friend to message me and say, whatever you need. So he worked for an Indigenous organization, and he just simply said, whatever you need, we have for you for like mental health support, for
Yeah,
therapy. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I also have not been doing my therapy. So let's
yeah,
get this back started. And it was like, okay, I'm talking about social media, and someone might be listening, like, well, I don't post. Okay, but you talk about it. And you would also, we're all aware when our friends are retreating, we're not seeing them as much. So those could be the signs. I wasn't, like I said, black and white. And he's one of my friends and I love him dearly. But never would he be someone I would go to and say, I need your help. And
yeah.
he was the one who stood up and offered that support to me.
It's so incredible.
Yeah.
That's amazing. For anybody who may be struggling today with their mental health, what advice or words of encouragement would you offer them as they work towards healing?
You are not alone, and you're going to hear it time and time, and you're
Mhm,
probably going to want to throw your hands up in the air, just like the two of us speaking right now, like, okay, that's great, but I feel alone. But
mhm.
you're not. And just share it with someone, because I promise you this world would not be the same.
Thank you for sharing that. I couldn't agree more. Um, you shared a little bit about your drumming and that you like to do that to fill your cup. Is self-care a part of your everyday life? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think that's more like my spiritual care. I know I need to go and drum. I actually had said at the beginning of at the it started back up because they take a break in the summer, and I was like, I need to get back out.
Aw.
But I haven't. I've been not available, or actually not available. I actually haven't been in the province to do it
Oh.
on the Mondays that it's landed on. So yeah, I have a feeling my cup is just, not necessarily about checking boxes, checking in with myself, being with my kids, doing the things, but then also doing the things with my friends and my lover, my husband. Um, yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't think there's one answer because there's just so many things, right?
Mhm.
That I love doing, and would I like to do more like of the hobbies that I love to do? Heck yes. And I know those would fill my cup too,
Mhm.
but that doesn't always allow for it. So you got to find the things that you can do in between.
Totally.
And yeah, so I'm actually just said to a friend of mine, we haven't seen each other all summer long. Like I'm talking all summer long. And so I had decided, I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I want to go old school, like my teenage days and even younger. Like I'm talking young even. And I'm gonna have a craft night. So I'm
Oh
gonna
my
have a play
gosh.
date with my friends. You can come. You're invited,
I love.
right?
Yes.
And I'm going to schedule it, and whoever can come can come. And guess what? If no one comes, I've scheduled it even for myself. I love crafting.
Love
So
that.
someone listening might be like, "What? Why are you doing this?" It's because I love it. And
Yes.
I want like the DIYs, and I want to do those fun
Yeah.
things. But sometimes that's not where I get to put my creative outlet, and that's fine. I get other ways to do it. And then this way I'll get to see friends, and we can have food and all the things and hang out. And yeah,
Yeah.
so sometimes as an adult, it's kind of not fun because you have to schedule it in,
Yeah.
but we schedule in all the other things, right? We
Literally.
schedule in our therapy appointments. We schedule in when maybe because it's a busy week, okay, we got to eat. Like, well, obviously we have to schedule it in eating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, though, as
Yeah.
like busyness, we have to actually schedule eating lunch, right?
Literally. Yes.
So why not schedule in those other times? Just do it and like make it a non-negotiable. So,
Yes. I love that, and I think it's really cool too when you can kind of meet 2 of those needs or fill 2 of those buckets at the same time. So
right.
that is like your social and creative at the
Yeah.
same time. Like, I
And your
try to
mental health in it too. Like there's
all of
so
it.
many that you're checking off.
Yeah.
So,
When you can do a couple of those things at once. I try to, like, go to the gym with a friend or go to the gym with my sister, so I'm getting
oh,
a little
smart.
bit of social and also moving my body, which both of those things are good for my mental health. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, craft night at Fallon's, I'm excited.
Oh,
Um, so you're a mom of 3,
yes.
a great mom of 3, I might add,
Oh, well, thank you.
and you share a little bit about your relationship with your kids online, which I absolutely love. How have your experiences shaped the way that you parent?
Oh, entirely different. All three of my kids, I've parented differently. I've been a different, not just myself, me and my husband have been different people raising our kids. We've been different. Like our relationship has been different, right?
Mhm.
Like I mean, I hope so. We're always changing.
Of course.
So I
Yeah.
hope it hasn't been the same. Um, and people think, oh, you have 3 kids, and, you think this idea of like you raise your first one, and then, oh, it's going to be easy
Oh,
because
you
you're
just
just
know what you're
doing it.
doing.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know what you're doing. Well, no, they're different humans. They're different little souls. And yeah, my youngest is, I always say he's here to teach me. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, he's constantly teaching me, and I'm a different person now too. And then, my youngest, or my oldest, I would say he had that version of me that didn't dive into um, all of this part of my life, right? Like advocacy and that. So I was just a different person, and I was young too. We were both really young,
yeah.
my daughter. So it's a privilege to like get to do this with them and raise them and them raise me also.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's cool. And then there's always
yes.
different stages, right? So yeah, I don't know.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
I love it.
it's a wild ride.
I would say and ever changing for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, also you talked a little bit about your husband and you guys have been together for 18 years?
Married for 18 years.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Goals, literal goals. So give us the secret sauce. What's your secret to a beautiful marriage for 18 years and counting? You even call him your lover. Like,
Yeah,
tell us.
it's
Give us
funny.
all the
So
secrets.
a lot of people don't know this. So in my phone, God, I don't even know how long ago, I put him as my lover in my phone.
Oh,
I didn't know this. He put me as my love in his phone. Yeah, because I don't know how it came up. I don't genuinely remember the conversation. And I said something, and then he was like, well, no, you're my love. And I was like, wait, what? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so funny because
that's
neither
so
of us knew
cool.
that. Yeah, and it just anyway, and then I called him that forever, and that was like that's his online character for most people too.
I love it.
I know, I love when people meet him and they call him my lover. Or they
That's
say,
awesome.
"What's your actual name?" Because they don't ever know it. But yeah, I don't know. I think understanding that, like I said already, you're both changing. You're constantly changing
Mhm.
and learning, and let him bring you the coffee.
Yes.
He
Yes.
spoils me with I am not the cook. I am not the cook by any means. And he spoils me with cooking and yeah, so just know also each other's this is only like something I think I would say like recently is like genuinely pay attention to people's love language because this is
Mhm.
something I'm really actually working on for myself with him. I think he really has the love language nailed to knowing mine. Not that I don't know his, but like actually enacting like and trying to fulfill that part of what it is that he wants out of the relationship. So,
I love that,
and I think
actually.
giving, I mean, I say it, but I have to practice it too, giving ourselves grace that like life is so busy with kids. Like
Mhm.
you genuinely have to make the time for one another and just noticing, the other day I was like, you are so far from me on the couch right now. Can you come please sit beside me?
Aw,
Because that's what we go through. We all go through
of course.
emotions, right?
Yeah.
Even friends sit down. How are you? You do the thing, you talk, da da da.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was the end of the day. You sit on the couch and we always like find your little routines, your little things that are yours. Like if we don't have tea together at night, I'm like, I'm spinning because I'm like,
Aw.
that's what we do. That's like, we sit down and we have tea before bed. And, or last night he fell asleep on the couch and I could hear him snoring. And I thought, oh gosh, like I should have got over there and sat down so we could have watched like a little bit of a show together. And then next thing you know, he got up and he started making our teas because it's our
Aw.
routine. I mean, it was early-ish. And so he made his tea. So then I was like I got excited, like, oh yeah, okay, we still have some time before we go to bed, right?
I love that so much. My next question actually was gonna be, like, do you have habits or rituals or any, like, traditions to do together to
Yeah.
keep that going? Because my husband and I, realized kind of through the summer, like we were so busy. The kids were busy. We didn't have consistent childcare. Like we both were trying to work and be with the kids. And the first thing to go is the relationship. Like our time together just gets pushed off for the kids' things, of course. Like that's how life goes. But if you let that go too much, then all of a sudden you've lost all of it, it feels like.
Yeah.
So
And
we were
know
like,
you can come back to it because I think some people
yes,
like, oh, it's so gone, but come back to it. Right? Like,
totally.
I mean, there's situations where it's so gone. Like,
Of
don't
course.
let me, I'm not a relationship counselor by any means, but it's not like sometimes it's not as far gone as you think, and just come
Totally.
back to it.
And
Yeah.
I think if you just make like now that the kids are in school, we looked at each other and we were like, okay, every Friday morning after drop off, we're going to go for a walk.
Oh,
45 minutes. We'll make it to the office still by 9:30. We still have a full work day. Like, and then even the first Friday, I was like, oh, I've got a lot to do. Like, we don't really have to go for that walk. And
right?
then I was like, no, no, no. Like, don't do that. We're going. And it was so nice. Like, it's just good to have that like a habit, like a ritual, like something that just always that is your time together, non-negotiable, and like tea at night. Like I just love that. I think it's so incredible. But you're right, you can get back to it. You just have to make the time for it
Yeah, absolutely.
and prioritize it, which is hard.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, speaking of lover, Taylor Swift, we need
Yeah.
to talk about this.
Oh my
I
gosh.
am a Swiftie, like a lifetime Swiftie. I've been a Swiftie since like teardrops on my guitar, okay?
Oh my
Like, it's
gosh.
been some
Yes.
time. And so I obviously followed your whole trip to Vienna. Can you share with us a little bit about what happened?
Yes. Okay. So I am now a Swiftie. I would say you as fans have pulled me in, and I'm so grateful that this is the community of folks that my daughter loves and is a part of. Let me just
Aw,
say that. Because my gosh, the kindest, most beautiful people ever. So we had been like trying to conspire to get tickets for our daughter, who's 15 now, to see
aw.
Taylor Swift in Toronto. We all know that you need a down payment for a house to be able to go see Taylor Swift in Toronto because
Literally, I'm not going because I can't even get tickets.
yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
So enter all the contests, folks, because that's what you got to
Yes,
do.
literally.
And we started looking at prices in Europe, and it was literally cheaper to get floor tickets and flights to get to Toronto, I mean, to Europe, and hotel. It was outrageous. Okay.
It's
Like,
wild.
you could get floor seats in Vienna for 300. I know.
Oh,
They went from 700 or 800, I think, to $300. That
that's
on stuff.
wild.
So imagine what their face price was even.
Oh my
Like our
gosh.
face price is like I don't even know, 1/10 of that, right? Like it's crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, or like times, I should say, not yeah. Uh Anywho, so we on the Monday we're finally like, we're gonna that's it, we're pulling the trigger. Are we doing this?
Oh
And
my
like
gosh.
I'm I'm nervous when I book a flight to go back home out west to Manitoba and it's
Oh,
$150 and I'm gonna type something in wrong. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like I'm like, is that my birthday? Like literally, I all of a sudden have no idea of anything.
Yeah.
So we're typing, I get it. So we get our tickets, we book our flights, and we get to the air. So that's Monday. We surprise her Tuesday.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we're like, it is a wild roller coaster. Wednesday, so we tell her Tuesday we're leaving the next day. We get to the airport. We're getting a bite. We're looking for a place to get a bite to eat. My uncle texts me. My uncle Kyle is like, he is he knows all the things concerts. Like he's the one I go to all my Madonna concerts with. He's
Aw.
seen Beyonce like everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
He's like a concert icon.
I
So
love
he
it.
messages me and sends me the Variety article that it wasn't canceled, but that there was an ISIS threat.
Ugh.
But it was still going on, this article he had sent. So I was like, oh my God. And I'm just like my mind's going because I'm
Spiraling.
not telling her because I don't know what's happening and I don't know how to make I can't even process this right now because I have to
Yeah,
be like, ah, smiles, like we're here about to
literally.
board the plane within an hour. So now
Yeah.
we're eating our food and I'm like sick to my stomach. I can't eat and it's official that it's canceled, the concert. And now I have to break the news to her. And the stress is real, folks. I call him my lover, but I was so mad at my husband for
Oh,
no reason other than that I had to do this alone. Like I literally said to him, I have to let you go because I have to do this. I have to break our daughter's heart alone because you're not here.
oh,
You know, it's something that like I don't want to have to tell her.
yeah.
And quite honestly, I would have rather given him the plate to do it. So
Totally.
I told her it was absolutely devastating. The
Oh,
the airport was very quite somber. There was like people bawling their eyes out as we're boarding the plane
oh my gosh.
because we're going to nothing. And we haven't really processed at that point like the severity of the situation,
Totally.
the what ifs of the situation, right? Like, and I had to let her process that on her own. So we still went to Vienna because there was a surprise for her. I was going to give her a friendship bracelet. So, those listening, I gave her a bracelet when we told her, and it said Vienna on it. And so then at the concert, I was going to hand her a bracelet that said Paris. So she knew that we were leaving the next day within 20 we were only in Vienna, we're going to be there for 22 hours and then fly to Paris because
Oh.
this is how cheap it was. Okay, folks, like I'm not saying cheap like I have it in my back pocket. Okay, we still had to, we're still paying this right off, but we were able to fly to Vienna and then to Paris with our hotels, our flights, and everything. And it was cheaper than just flying to Vienna, staying the one night, and flying home right away. Yeah, it was
Oh
outrageous.
my gosh.
It
That's
was
wild.
so, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Like,
That's
hi, can
weird,
you have
yeah.
the flights in Europe, flight prices from Europe here?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we ended up spending the day in Vienna. We were amongst all the Swifties that if you saw the viral
I
videos,
remember the video.
singing. We watched a couple get engaged. Yeah, it
Oh.
was actually we watched two couples get engaged. We saw one the one day, and then the next day we were walking to dinner, and we saw. Wait, was that all the same day? Oh my gosh, that was the same day. We saw a couple get engaged in the afternoon, and then I was on Europe time, obviously, or home time, and then that night we saw another couple get
How
engaged
special is that?
wild. So yeah, and then we continued on to Paris. And then
Oh,
long story short, people saw it. And we had this incredible, I had this amazing follower who sent, I still have to share the video. So I had a follower send me a VIP package forever from the Dublin show. His name is Ken
oh,
Hughes. Shout out. Thank you so much, Ken. You're incredible for doing that. And
so cool.
yeah, and then um, lovely, lovely, dear Jillian Harris saw the video,
This
and
is my favorite part.
yeah, she said herself, she's like, "I was gonna message you right away when you guys were in Europe. Like, I have tickets. I wanna give them to you." She
Oh,
held off. We got home, and she sent me a text, and she was like, "Have you been able to get tickets?" I was like, "No, a couple people had, like, offered." One person, I actually followed up with them because they were selling them for face, value, so maybe-ish affordable, and then she had already sold them in, like
oh,
yeah, so that's okay. It was still a beautiful offer and such a kind gesture. And
yeah.
Julian's like, "Well, I have tickets." I die. Like I have goosebumps. Like
Of
they
course, I had goosebumps watching Fallon. I was like, "No way, this is so special."
yeah. So like love wins. I mean, all the hate and everything that transpired for that concert and the
Yeah,
threats and then what came about to hear of like what could have been and what could have happened.
totally.
Um, I just believe that there was, yeah, so there's good out there.
There is good
And
out there, and
she
that video was
Jillian
just
she's an angel, so I'm just like,
seriously, like,
"Oh."
literally, and
Yeah,
it was so encouraging to watch, like, just as someone who is following along with this and feeling sad when I saw the announcement and then feeling more sad when I saw your videos of you sharing that with your daughter, and then, like, the uplifting, like, Jillian Harris just coming in and saving the day was just so incredible to watch
I
too.
know. So, yes, we do. We get to go to the Toronto show, so I'm
I'll
so
be watching vicariously through you.
I'll bring you along. We'll go live. We'll go live.
Yes, please. Oh, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you guys, and I just think that's such an incredible way of how social media plays a positive role in our lives, how people feel
Yeah.
connected through storytelling, and just that there is good in the world. And you're
Yeah,
right, love always
and the
wins.
hope for me, trickling to my daughter too,
Yes,
right? Yeah,
and how impactful for her not only to see that, but to experience it and to see how good that feels for both the person giving and the person receiving. It's something I'm trying to share with my kids is that, like, giving feels good, being kind to people feels good.
yeah.
Like, it's great for the recipient, but it's also good for you. So, I just think that's so motivating for her to learn through you
I
and just so incredible.
I know, I'm so grateful for all of it.
Oh, I love it. Well, Fallon, to end, I usually do some rapid fire questions. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Me too. Guilty pleasure?
Oh, guilty pleasure? I don't know. Oh gosh. I have no idea what
That's okay, we can skip.
yeah, skip.
Okay.
I don't know.
Favorite TV show?
Oh, favorite friends?
Ah, dream travel destination?
Barbados?
Oh, and favorite Taylor Swift song?
Oh my gosh. What would be my favorite Taylor Swift song? I don't know now. I think I need time because I have had so many come up through this whole experience.
I
So
bet.
I'm saying all of them. I'm not picking
Okay.
a favorite yet. My ever would be
Okay.
like, "You don't even know them all, mom." And I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna get to know them all."
You
So
don't have to know them all.
yeah,
There are so many good ones.
yeah.
Well, Fallon, thank you so much for joining me today, for being so vulnerable with us, for sharing, and also for raising awareness and being a support to so many people. Where can people find you and connect with you?
Oh my gosh. First of all, thank you for creating the space and
Aw.
allowing me to come here and just share time with you. I'm so grateful for it. So thank you. And then thank you to
Aw.
everyone listening. And you can follow along with me on Instagram, Fallon Farinacci. You'll have to look at the show notes to know how to spell my name. And then TikTok, I'm kind of on there, and my website too, which is my first and my last name.com. You can follow along. I'll try to upload some more things on my website before you all peek at it.
Amazing. Well, thank you again so much, Fallon.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Your Cup of Joy. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. And if this episode resonated with you, or if you've been loving this show, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you are listening. Your support helps the podcast grow, it helps it reach more people, and it means the absolute world to me. So keep filling your cup with joy, and I will see you next week.